Everybody says relationships matter in business, but most people treat relationships like a tactic, a follow up email, a LinkedIn request, a coffee meeting, a name in a CRM. But real relationship capital is something different. It is built over years, it is built through consistency. It is built when people learn they can trust you before they ever need anything from you. And in a world where everyone is automating outreach, scaling content, and trying to move faster, the people who still know how to build real trust may have the biggest advantage. So, if you've ever wondered why some people seem to create opportunity everywhere they go, while others keep networking and never seem to build momentum, this conversation you do not want to miss. Let's start it up. Hello, and welcome to Stack and Startup Baltimore, where we talk with founders, operators, creators, and business leaders about the realities of building something. Today, I'm joined with Andy Kobus of United Rentals. Andy, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Jason. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for being here. So, you are one of those people who operates at the intersection of business, relationships, community, and service. Whenever I've talked with anybody behind your back, of course, they always have glowing reviews about you. And it's just like, that Andy, he is everywhere. That is that pretty true?
I appreciate that. It is a busy intersection, and yeah, we do our best to be present, even in rooms that you're not physically in, and that's one of the best compliments you can get. Right, is when your friends will talk smack to your face, but behind your back,
Yeah.
they're speaking well. They're holding up your name, uh, bringing opportunities that that you may not even know about yourself, and that's wonderful. It's just to know that we truly put the unity in community. And when we can be an extension of ourselves, we don't need to be physically present in every room that our presence is felt.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at your LinkedIn, you're a board member of three nonprofits. One of them is the Greater Baltimore Chamber of Commerce, which I'm a part of. I joined as basically as soon as I started my business, SD Tech, and so it's great that we're able to link up through there. And just give us a little bit more about yourself.
So yeah, with United Rentals, we provide services and I mean obviously rental equipment majority to the construction industry and also into facility management, and then you start to peel back layers of the people that we do business with directly, and it covers so many different industries, and it's a heavily transactional business but also fueled by relationships, and that can be a tough dichotomy to overcome when you're in sales and BD and you're tasked with all of that at once. Some people lean heavily to one side nor to the other. I lean more towards the relationship side, but still manage the transaction. And more of the transactions come when you are that trusted partner, when you build that trusted relationships, when you're getting referrals from directions you may not ever expected. So going to something like the Greater Baltimore Chamber, uh, it's a fantastic group, and you would think this is not traditionally a place where a company like ours may find success. But when we go about it in that way, we're not there to sell. We show up and we try to solve issues. We try to help make people's jobs more manageable. We make it a pleasure to do business together because at the same time, we're referring them to other businesses. There are other people that need the services that are out there. And whether it is rental equipment of what we provide, whether it's something one of my referral partners provides, or it's a bigger umbrella of something like mental wellness, that there are so many people doing fantastic things under nonprofits or other businesses that unintentionally work in silos. And when the light is shed and they're brought together, incredible things happen. And I love being a part of that. I love being just sometimes on the sideline, just knowing that I helped bring a couple of people or organizations together, or know that people come back to me and say, "Hey, that introduction was amazing. This person is doing this, and we're working on that together, and it's incredible." And I love being a part of it. So that, in the big picture, is what I am all about. Is really, it's about us. It's always about us, and us is pretty big.
Absolutely. And I am glad that you touched on the mental health aspect because there's still stigmas around that, not only in, you know, outside of business, but within business itself. And unfortunately, we did lose somebody last month. And unfortunately, it was also during Mental Health Awareness Month. So unfortunately, we weren't able to get this video out in time for that because we're actually recording in June of itself. But I do want to talk about like how important is obviously not just the mental health, but also recognizing it within other members.
That's a big first step, is getting past the fear of talking, whether it's your own feelings that you may not even recognize, just and or seeing the signs in other people. There's no handbook to say these are absolutely the signs where someone needs an outreach, where someone wants to have a conversation but they're not sure how to. We have to put the resources out there. And my thought recently in the construction industry, and I'm seeing this across so many other industries as I'm having more conversations, that there are incredible resources that are available, but they're not always accessible. And it's the accessibility of resources that we need to really hone in on. And the more we can have open conversations just out of nowhere, everybody's happy to have the water cooler talk about sports or movies, entertainment, other light subjects. But what about the meaningful, impactful subjects of really looking someone in the eye to say, how are you doing today? How is your brother feeling? How is your daughter doing? How is the school play? Something to make a personal connection sometimes. And it's not a sales tactic. It is not just relationship building. It goes beyond that. It goes into just being a decent human being and taking a moment to show that you care about someone else the way that you would hope someone else cares about you. And you never know what just that smile, just that soft approach can do for someone else's day. Had that come back to me so many times, and truly being the type of person that you wish was there for you in other times, and being the one that other people can rely on, knowing that they'll be there for you when the time comes also. So that to me is a huge part of it. Um, what I like to say is, all the things that we have, all the material possessions that we work for, and things are important. Obviously, having a life beyond survival, but it's all borrowed. Everything's borrowed, and it's all left here in the end. And no matter what your spiritual belief is, all the material possessions are left here for someone else to pick up when we're gone. And it's the spiritual currency that you can take with you. So the more I talk about that with other people, even if it just gives you pause to think about that, the more spiritual currency that we accumulate, the more we can share. And the more we give away, the more we get back. It's just an amazing investment, that it's nothing to just share a smile or to say thank you. We don't transfer that to someone else. We both grow. So, keeping those things in mind, you never know how you're going to be able to impact someone else's life. Might as well make it a positive way.
I definitely agree with that. And I am going to kind of shift a little bit to tell a story about my neighbor, or I should say my former neighbor, because he actually died during COVID. And he didn't die specifically of COVID, but he didn't have any family. He didn't really have much in the way of friends, fully retired in his 70s. And when he died, the house flipping company that eventually bought the house from the bank, they just rolled up a dumpster and threw his life away. And that actually affected me. That actually just to because like I have stuff as a lot of other people have stuff, and just to like it's not going anywhere. It was just completely tossed. Now a lot of it was questionable in quality to begin with because he didn't buy like new things and all that. But it's just the idea that the stuff that he acquired is never going to go to anybody, and it's like for a while there, it's like I don't know how to rationalize that. Now I'm lucky that I'm married. I do have family and friends that I talk to, and I'm building this community here. And so when I'm gone, I'm not going to leave with the type of whisper that he did. That's a little aside that I wanted to do because of just what you brought up. Uh,
Right. No, that's great. That's a it's a great point to bring up. I'm sorry that that's the situation. It's but it does bring the thoughts. It brings the thought to say, and
yeah,
I do this too. My wife and I are, we have three children and a grandchild and a granddaughter. We're blessed to have what we have. But I look at that and I think we want to do the best that we can while we're here, while we're able to enjoy it, and the material things that we have. Sure, it's great. It's great to have hobbies, to have passions and collections, and things are fun. But we try to get them involved also, or that other people are going to benefit by that, because
yeah,
that is what we carry with us. And I think that's the best thing that we can pass on to our children aren't just the heirlooms. It's the spirit, the things that to know that I learned, whether it's how to cook a recipe, or how to do certain chores, how to fix things, how to build, whatever it is to do, or just be nice to other people. That's something that I learned from my dad. I learned from my mom, my grandparents. That's to me, that's it's worth focusing on.
exactly. All right. So with that aside, and I'm glad we had that little talk right there. But I do want to get into like how relationships and business and all this networking, how that still seems to benefit business in the long run. And I want to ask that, since you do put such an onus on this networking, do you think the relationships still outperform automation? And do you think that that is going to continue into the future?
I do. I think that a lot of the AI and automation of things, the technology, the better it gets, it's going to help with a lot of processes. It can, when it's properly managed. I mean, anything in my opinion, just one person, but I think that all of that starts with source data somewhere. That source data comes from a human being. So it starts there, that whatever we put into it, whether it's a good CRM system, whether you're talking to your chat or to your Gemini or whomever you use, that you're putting in the information to begin with, and it builds on that. So it can help you to create a flyer. It can save some work, make things a little more manageable. That absolutely, but look at the things that come into style and the things that go out and come back again. Um, Vinyl records are back again. CDs are coming back to people that look at things and think, we've lived through a pandemic, and a younger generation now that is coming into the workforce that almost barely remembers it. And in the next 10 years or so, we're going to be further removed from it. But I think that we'll still have that need to reconnect in a way that only human beings can between each other. So I think that it will only go so far to selling your brand. It depends on the industry that you're in. So, an in-person telemarketer is one of the worst things that I can imagine, and we see them. We see them out at networking events, that people just show up and they're throwing cards around and they're collecting cards, and they're maybe grab a bite to eat and they leave. And there's no personality, there's no drive, there's no conversation of, oh, who was that? Oh, who is that? Who were you talking to? They looked really great. And those are the things that you can't replace in my experience. And that's what I enjoy. That's what I thrive on is, approaching the next event. How big or how intimate will it be? Who's going to be there? Who will I meet? Who can I introduce other people to? Approach each one of them with some enthusiasm and expectations. Um, One of the things that I talk about to other people when we talk about the networking is you look at time as an investment. We don't spend time, we invest it. When you invest time, you're expecting a return out of it. So, is it worth my time to go to an event, to mix with people, to collect some cards, to give some cards, to exchange information, and then the follow up that afterward, making that manageable? It's that an investment in your time, not just spent and done. So it all depends on what you do with it, what your goals are. It starts back there, but with the right goals and the right expectations in mind, I mean, I will always, stand by the concept of good quality networking.
I definitely agree with that, and you and I have both seen that in the chamber events, and you have made some comments during the chamber events when we're all doing our little elevator pitch, which seems to get shorter and shorter as we get more people on board, which is a good problem to have. I think it's a
Right.
great problem to have. But you are right, because I have definitely seen people who have stood up and they do an ad read. They do an ad read and like nothing else. They literally have it. Okay, so I am so and so from so and so, and we offer blah 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 blah. And they it just sounds so robotic and fake. And I think I try not to sound robotic and fake. I don't know. How would you critique my pitch when we do that? Because you've
It
heard
was
it a
good.
couple of times.
I like yours because I've tossed another gold nugget at you because I learned this one a couple of years ago in one of our sales classes that we took at United. And it's a theory called is, does, means. So if you think of those three categories, I guess, when you're introducing yourself, this can go for a product, it can go for a company, it can go for a person, a brand. Is exactly that's the name of the thing. Does is the features. That's where a lot of people get stuck and they end right there. They want to stand up and give you that whole
Okay,
infomercial
just
in 30
just
seconds.
1 second. Can you start over a little bit because we did get a little bit of roboticness in there.
Sure, sure. So one of the things that we learned a couple years ago in a sales class was what's called is, does, means. It's the is exactly that. It's the name of the product or the company or the brand. The does is the features and benefits. I think a lot of people get stuck right there, and that's where they end. And it's a huge fail at a networking event, especially in a larger group. You get stuck in the is and does. You never get to the means. And that's where I like to start. Is means is the emotional connection. It's the why you should partner with me, why you should invest in my product, why this product or service will improve your life in some way. So if you start there, then other people are coming to you to ask, well, what's the name of that? Well, tell me what it does. Tell me more. Tell me how I can get it. Tell me how we can work together. And when you start at that side instead of the is and does, half the time we have to be honest with ourselves. When we go around a large room, how many people's names do you remember? So the small things about shave off your last name, unless it's important. If it's part of your product or part of your sale, then by all means you do what works for you. But to me, adding my last name doesn't add much value. Adding in my company name up front, maybe, maybe not, because people might right away, I don't need anything to rent. I don't do anything, or they've had a history in rental and it right away puts you into a pigeonhole. I start with something else, and it's usually different at each event, but you start with an emotional connection. You know, how did Nike get blow up? Right? It was just do it. It has nothing to do with sports. In itself, that little phrase has absolutely nothing to do with shoes, with sports, with anything. Just do it. And you're wondering, just do what? What
Yeah.
is it? Oh, and then I can't do it without that brand. I need that. And the swoosh became everything. So there's plenty of other brands that are like that, right? But when you make that emotional connection first, that's the means. So that's a good one that I always bear in mind, and I try to work with some other people on.
So I would say that I have a problem with the means when it comes in to respect with the MSP side of things, because with IT, a lot of people don't want to necessarily think about it. But what I started doing this last time around, and what I'm going to keep on doing, is I add on this this podcast, and this becomes a little bit of that means it does hit that emotional aspect, and I know that's true because in all the other events I went to, nobody really came up to me. But the last time when I said, and oh, by the way, I do this podcast to tell the stories of different businesses, and let me tell your story, or something along those lines. And five people came up to me immediately. And that's something. This last networking event that I went to, it was a massive mega spring networking event. And I went up there, and of course, SD Tech shirt, SD Tech cards. But then I also would say, hey, by the way, podcast. And when you mentioned the podcast, there's like eyes light up. It's like, really? Really? I can have my story told through you? And it's like, yes, you can.
That's right.
And let's keep talking. Let's keep that relationship. And then yes, I can also say, I've told your story. Now, how can I help your business in other ways as well? And that can be on the tech side. It could be phones, cameras, whatever. It doesn't matter. And so I do think that has definitely been powerful, and it's allowed me personally to fix, or not fix, but definitely build more relationships and more trust by saying it's not all about me. It's going to be about you now.
That's right. That's the differentiator. And we get asked that a lot. It goes back to the like the sell me this pen theory, or when people say, hey, well, all other things equal, what sets you apart? And, the traditional answer is, well, my competitors have everything that we do except for one thing, and that's me. I'm the
Right.
differentiator. And that's great if you're likable and you do your best to be relatable. And how do people know that you're likable and relatable? You've got to have some type of personality. You got to offer something that's going to pique their interest to get past the fact that there's a sale hidden in here somewhere. Because at the end of the day, that we are all working towards it. It's in there. It's how hard do you put that up front? Somewhere in the end, that conversation, there's going to come up eventually. This is what I do and how you can help me. But first, I'm starting with how I can help you. And when you approach it that way, you get to the other. It's a little bit longer game sometimes. But when you're in the right crowd, when you're with the right decision makers and the right people, you'll get there a lot faster. And you'll find that that will spread, and you will reach people at a level that you never would have just Googling or knocking cold on the door. It can save you so much. Getting a warm introduction is nothing like president of our chamber sending an introduction out to someone to say, I'd love for you to talk with my friend Andy. I think you would make a great connection together.
Right.
And then you all of a sudden you have their attention, where otherwise just name dropping is not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of going towards the like some of the bad networking that you've seen. What do you think a bad networker does that they think is helping?
That's good. There are times I see that, and that's a great way to put it, because you can call out bad behaviors all day, and there most of them are pretty obvious. But a bad networking practice, but you see the good intention through that. I think it starts with where that person is tasked, and it goes back to what are their goals. If they come in with a singular goal in mind, just to collect business cards, because maybe their role is just strictly business development, they get a stack of cards, take them back to the office, and divvy them out amongst the team that will do the follow-ups. Now, are those follow-ups appropriate? Are they going to seem like telemarketing because it's not coming from the same person that you met? I think that's a fail. Um, where people need to explain that, even to the point to say, "Hey, I'm here to collect card. Just come out and say it. I'd rather hear it personally. I'd rather hear it up front and say, I'm strictly BD. I'm here to collect a bunch of cards. You're going to get a call from a coworker of ours. I'd really love it if you could give them some attention. I think there's something that could help you out. But I'm 1 degree away from that. I'm just the face of it today. That's great. At least I know that up front, and there's nothing false about it. But there have been times where you exchange cards with someone and you leave thinking this is pretty good. I mean, my follow ups, I kind of put people in three categories. There's the I need to connect right away, so I'm either texting or emailing that night or the next morning. And then there's that kind of second layer, like, hey, it was great meeting you. I'll see you at another event sometime. Or and then there's that kind of outside of my circle where I think I'm not going to proactively reach out, but if they reach out to me, I'll give them respect. I'll give them the time. So we'll see where it goes because I just don't see an immediate return on it. But who knows? We'll see what the cards have in store. So when you get a call back from someone else and it's kind of blindsided by, well, I just met someone the other day with your company, and then they have to explain it to you that, oh, well, I'm calling on their behalf because they're just a card collector. Okay. So, and I think people just need to approach the room in the appropriate way. So that's one big one.
Yeah, I personally am adverse to cold contacts. I am very kind of um, risk adverse and rejection adverse, and I prefer to have that more warm type of contact. I see the place for it, but I see technology doing that. Let the cold technology take care of that, so that maybe it can turn them warm. I have also seen on the inverse of that where I actually use a program that supports the podcast that goes out and finds the businesses. It does cold email them, and then we get through the whole pre-podcast, then on to here, it's one of those where it's like it's cold on the machine side and it's warm here, but people have called out the application. They're like, "Is this AI?" And it's like, "It is." But it is for a particular reason because the whole cold aspect of it, I hate.
That's right, and it may be appropriate in some cases. That's why I try not to work in absolutes where you say this just should never. It should. There are some things, sure, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of situations where that may be appropriate. But I think a lot of people would appreciate a heads up or an explanation to say, "Hey, just look out for this. It may seem like." It's an AI or so, but it is legit from our company. I'd love for you to give it a try. That helps. It has, or else, why is there a person showing up to a networking event in the first place? I mean, if you're fractional, there's fractional BD services out there. It's fantastic. It's great. It's a great way to get your brand out there without, it's an investment of your money and saving on your own time to send someone out on your behalf to collect cards and bring back the information. That's great. But as long as it's told up front that I'm not the one that's going to follow up with you, but please take a moment with them and you'll be in good hands. How many times have we dealt with that, right? We're absolutely sold on someone to think you're the one that's going to take care of me, and all of a sudden you're handed off to someone else, and you want to go back to that person, but they're not tasked with it. They're not being compensated for it. So really, why should they have that follow up? So it goes back to the companies that set up their plans in the first place. So, just having an understanding of that up front really helps with, transitioning the relationship if it's going to someone else.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I do like to go for technology that is able to buy back. You talked about one of the investing in time and all that. And I
Yes.
do see that there's technologies that are coming out that currently exist that are designed to buy back our time. But I also see that we then use those technologies to fill up more. Like we're not actually buying back our time. We're just finding faster ways to do more to fill up. And it's like that, going back to mental health, is not healthy for us.
I'm glad to hear you say that. That's amazing because I've brought this up to a few people in the last couple of months or so, something dawned on I must have been watching TV, or it dawned on me to think, you know what? I mean, I'm assuming, you're close enough to my age that we remember the card catalog at the library. We
Yep.
remember having to call 411 or call things. If you're sitting at home and just a random thought comes to mind, who was this person in that movie, or what's the score on this game? You had to wait for the paper, or you
Yeah.
had to go to the library to look it up. So that took time, right? And what are we doing with all that time that technology is saving us? And it brings to what you just said. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because I put that out for people, and I have a couple of my own answers, and it's usually it's a fun, polite conversation, but really it's something that maybe businesses should analyze to think, well, what are you doing with the time? If you're hiring people for an 8-hour shift, and if they don't need to be present for that entire 8 hours, they can get what traditionally was 8 hours worth of work done in four. Do you task them with 4 more hours of work to double their productivity? Or does
Or,
that lead to burnout? Do
or
you look them for efficiency? Or do you
right.
find a little something with that middle ground to say, this is great? Uh,
Well, and also, since we're going back to things past and TV and movies and whatnot, you're saying, okay, so this person does 4 hours worth of work. Well, let's go back to the movie Office Space, where he was doing 15 minutes of work, maybe on any given day. And
That's
he
it.
was just trying to look busy. And that is a genuine concern because when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were concerned that productivity was going to go down. Productivity didn't go down and actually went up because people were able to, instead of having a draining commute, they just walk downstairs, and that was fantastic. And now we're seeing this whole return to office culture coming in. And the thought is like, well, now we can see that people are not wasting time. And it's like, well, are you also going to take the water cooler away? Because people will gravitate to that. They'll gravitate to the break room. They'll gravitate to other people's cubes and do absolutely nothing for moments of time. And those are still very human moments of time. It's like, why are you trying to go back to something that was pretty broken to begin with? So I just I can't comprehend that. But another thing I was going to say is that there was, because we were going back to the card catalog and trying to look things up. I saw this one comic years ago where is looking things up now, like, oh man, I want to look this thing up, and they've got their phone, like, okay, here it is. And then before internet, it's like, oh, I want to look this thing up, and then the next person says, oh, that's a damn shame. Because you're right, you just couldn't. You had to wait. You had to wait. And
That's right. That's
if you
right.
didn't and
You
if you
did.
didn't write it down, maybe you remembered, maybe you didn't.
Maybe not. You're right. And where did I put it when I wrote it down? That's right. And we memorized phone numbers. People were, you know, we know. I mean, heck, I remember taking math classes in middle school and high school. We weren't allowed to use calculators because we could not rely on technology. It's like, wow, that's to look now using that technology, you can get a master's degree in in just that itself. So it's pretty incredible. You want to call it progress? It is in some ways. In other ways, where have our brain cells gone? What are we doing with all the extra with what we used to do? It shifts. It's pretd amazing. And then I'm sure people study over this all the time. Where you look back even further, go back 100 years, where what were people doing with where it took days to do things that 50 years ago took only a couple of hours, and now it takes minutes. So yeah, it's exciting to see how far we'll take it in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And but I don't think we'll lose that thread of humanity throughout that. That's something that a lot of the science fiction warns us about, and where you see we've been through enough to see some things come true, and some things come close to being true. And yeah, it's eye opening, and it's absolutely worth conversations. So
I mean, absolutely. Like, given enough money, I could actually build a Star Trek like computer today. And that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get one that cooks for you when you go walk in and order a meal. I think we're getting there.
There are food grade 3D printers.
Yeah,
They do exist. Not
amazing.
exactly a replicator, but
Yeah,
yeah, the fact that they have 3D, I saw that and I'm just like, okay, what are what are we at? Where are we actually at?
we're getting there.
Um, so how do you think opportunities actually move through a local business community?
I think that's good. I think that the more the local businesses find ways to collaborate and figure out, collaboration over competition is probably the banner of the talk that I would give on that. Finding ways for us to succeed together, whether it's, packaging a marketing uh, program together, offering a this and that, dinner and a movie, for example. You own a restaurant and a theater together. I mean, that's an easy example, but you can get creative in other ways to find your market. You have to know the demographics of the area where you're trying to establish your business and playing to that. Look up all the national days, the National Donut Day or National Pizza Day or National Pet Your Neighbor's Dog Day or whatever it is, and do that ahead of time. Get people out. Baltimore especially can be a very eccentric city, and we have those ways that you put something weird out there and you think nobody's going to bite on this, and you will find people that will get all excited for it. So just put it out there and find other people that are like-minded to say, let's band this together and find ways to grow rather than everybody working individually and siloed. Like I referred before, there's so many businesses and nonprofits and other just good intentioned people that could be so much stronger, and their message could go out so much further if they got on each other's podcasts, if they worked together and advertised in each other's businesses, if they ran ads together to say, like, we do this constantly at United Rentals. We have different business units. We have probably a wider breadth of product and services, and even our employees know because we are out pushing our own line of product. And we remember we have to look around and look at who our colleagues are working with because we might overlap so much. And in that overlap, we could even grow more success. So if we did that as a community of small businesses to know, hey, you know, Jason's running a bagel shop, but guess what? Andy offers legal services. They may not have anything to do with each other, but I guarantee you, come up with something just to say, I don't know, put some kind of a marketing scheme together between the two. You're going to push both. You're going to find the customers for one will be the customers for the other. And somehow you're going to find something. You're going to have a little fun along the way, and you're going to attract other people with other ideas to say, I want to be a part of that. So I think small businesses can thrive off of that idea of collaboration over competition.
I mean, I can definitely see parallels between a law office and a bagel shop, especially when that law office needs bagels for their conference room, and if they're constantly going back and forth, hey, I need a legal question. It doesn't need to be like a full thing. Oh, sure, I'll answer a quick question. Hey, you want to bring some bagels over for a 10% discount or whatever? I can definitely see that parallel right there.
Right. That's right.
And yeah, I think that if you can build that reputation, hey, I'm working with this guy, and client comes in, oh, this is a tasty bagel. Where'd you get it from? It's like, well, talk to my guys over there. I think that reputation and that consistency that can compound over time, don't you think?
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think that the more we do talk to each other and understand what's beyond, and I probably come up with a better name, but I'm calling this concept beyond the business card. What is it what can you tell me about yourself or your passions that I don't see on your website or on your physical card? What else is there? To look at me, you might see middle-aged white guy, married, kids, grandkids. I can see all that on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I can see the pictures you put up. But beyond that, what do you do? What do you really do? So it's getting to know people at that next level to say, here's what I do for a living, but here's what my life is about. And if there's an overlap, if there's things you have in common, oh, I like baseball. I enjoy baseball too. It's something to bond over and to start a conversation with. Um, Finding out you're passionate about, and maybe a similar nonprofit or something that you care to give some of your extra time to. You're investing your time over the weekends in working with children or working with women or working with empowering people in some way, something in community. That's the kinds of things that I like to do, and I've met a lot more people in doing that. And then business falls in behind that. You get so entrenched in that side of it, then you find out, well, what is it you do? Let me help you with that. I'm going to make some other connections. It's a lot stronger by that point when you come in at that angle.
Yeah, I've worked at a couple of nonprofits as well, and the one that I really enjoyed, and unfortunately I don't know why they stopped calling me for this because it was a lot of fun to do. But at the start of the pandemic, we lost one dog, and that was tragic. Actually, I lost a job, and then the next day I lost a dog. So that was a very bad week for me. Couple of weeks later, found that there was a husky rescue, a local husky rescue, all nonprofit, and that's where we picked up our current husky. And they were like, "Oh, by the way, we're looking for volunteers to." And again, this was during the pandemic, where we need people to come out, visit with the dogs that we currently have, walk them, feed them, and my wife and I were both like, "Yes." We get to hang around with more huskies? Absolutely. In
Great.
fact, well, believe it or not, there is a husky over there, even though you don't hear one.
That's great.
But I do think that that is important that you also give back to the community. I think whether you are a business leader and can give back monetarily, or if you are just a regular person, don't necessarily have a lot of funds, giving time. Because again, time. It's a finite resource for everyone. And to be able to make those connections, not just social connections, but even just memory connections, I think is so important in
Sure.
the long run.
I agree. I mean, how many small businesses can you think of that may have come and gone and not too many people may have noticed? And it's a sign changes and you think, oh, well, it's something different now. But that beloved business that got out and part of the community, whether you patronize them or not, you knew about them. Uh, you're going to notice them when they're gone and you're going to fight for them when you can. If something strikes, if there's a disaster of some sort or the threat of them going out of business, the community will rally together to keep them there. And we've seen that a lot. I won't call anybody out by name, but um, let's go bigger. If I Personal confession, I haven't watched The Simpsons in years, but if they said it's going off the air, I'd be devastated. So it's almost
Kind of
that
the
the same
same.
concept, right?
Yeah, kind of the same. It always slightly freaks me out when I'm talking with somebody and they didn't see the first episode of The Simpsons, or they were not alive when Jurassic Park came out, and I'm just like, yeah, nope. There's a little gray in here. There's a little less here. I get the linear progression of time. I don't like it, but it happens. I mean, I've worked with people who were not around when the towers came down, and it's like I knew that was going to happen one day. Why did
Right,
it happen that that day?
right. Right.
Yeah. So now we've also talked about a little bit about knowing when there's a bad connector out there, but if you took that magnifying or put on that inspector cap, how do you know when somebody is a real connector or somebody who just happens to know a lot of people?
There is a difference between them, and that's great. That's a great thing to point out that, and I've seen both. We see them all the time. That the people that name drop, I think the people that consistently will say, "You should do this. You should meet that. You should do this." Quite often are the ones kind of putting a show on. Sometimes, again, good intentions, but there are a lot of times where maybe you should get to know me a little better before making recommendations. If you're coming straight out and telling somebody, what to wear, what to watch on TV, or what to eat, telling you you should meet this person, you should do that. You have your own agenda in a way, or you're blindly just stating that you know people, and you're coming up with names that, again, all due respect, the names don't mean much to me up front. Give me the means. That's the is. You're going back to the is, does, mean, right? You're telling me the is, and that's it. You're saying this person you should be. If I don't know you well enough yet, that's the recommendation carries no weight until I get to know you better. And there are very few people that I know that well that will just name another name that I've never heard of before. I instantly will go out of my way to make sure that we meet because their recommendation means that much to me. Several others that will do a similar, that will give a paragraph or a couple lines, or call me first to say, hey, was this okay if I connect the two of you, and this is why. And absolutely, thank you for doing that. Then I can kind of determine what's the investment of my time. Do I want to go out of my way to have a coffee or to sit down, or do I just say, hey, if you'll be at the next big networking event, I'll be there an hour early, I'd be happy to meet with you one on one, and we can see who else we can meet together. There's different ways to go about it, but the people that will do that, I think, have a lot more credibility, that will take interest in others first and listen and then make the introductions. Or if you just come up and say, "Hey, this I just met this person. They seem pretty cool. Let's go see what they're about together." Cool, that's great. You're saving us both time, and let's figure it out. But the people that name drop and just just kind of there for themselves, it comes out pretty quickly, and I'm usually guarded on that up front. And if you know it's coming, they have good intentions, then you give it its due. But it's the genuine people that take time to get to know you, to know that they're proud to made a quality introduction, which goes a very long way because it comes back around, and it just there's no center to this universe of connections. It's just there's so many different dimensions. Um, I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, I think that really is kind of the difference of just being visible versus being trusted. As somebody who, hey, this isn't just somebody who provides delivery services. This is somebody who actually cares about your things getting where they need to be.
Right, right. I've met some incredible people even recently that I, with all humility, and it's difficult. I'm getting better. I promised others that I need to get better at talking about myself. But there are occasionally someone that I've recently met that will break down a personal barrier or just have a conversation over something that rather personal, something that, they may say, I just want to talk to you about, I'm a recovering alcoholic. And if you'll see that I don't drink in public, I don't do this. Like, I fully respect that. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I appreciate that trust more than knowing that fact. I appreciate the trust and that gesture that someone will tell me something like that. And cool. Hopefully, up front, I'm not going to treat you any differently one way or the other. But when somebody shares something personal with you, they may be going through something. Or they may ask, hey, can I introduce you to somebody else? Because this person is struggling with something. It seems like you might be able to help them, or maybe somebody can do that. And it's amazing just when you see that happen right in front of you, and to think that what a blessing it is to be in that situation, to directly help someone or to get them to someone that's going to make their lives enriched in some way, it's pretty amazing. And I've seen it happen so many times that God puts us in the right place at just the right moment. And I always joke about writing a book about it, and I think it's time that we just start adding. Everybody can add their own, like the old chicken soup books, right? Where you
Right.
just have a little paragraph or a page or two, and just how I met in Smaltimore. That we all know somebody that knows somebody, and it's just incredible how some connections lead to others that impact lives.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about your philanthropy work, because I think that that is something that is very important to you. Uh, at the last power lunch, somebody, I don't remember, it might have been Eric, who's like, "Hey, do you actually do any work, or is this just the whole thing that you do?" Um, so how do you think your service outside of work then shapes the way somebody leads inside of a business?
So first, and thank you, Eric, if you're listening. I appreciate that. But and I get asked that, and we joke about it sometimes. And it's if anybody at United Rentals is listening, then I'm absolutely on the clock all the time. But and I am, and I do my job. I do what I'm tasked with, and the results speak for themselves. Do very well. It's building the relationship side that I think reading a room is just as important. If I were in a room with, 20 superintendents from construction companies, my whole focus would be on the services that we provide to them as a company. If I'm in a room with business development reps or networkers from various industries, I'm not going to just limit the conversation to just what I do. I'm going to open that conversation about learning about others. Goes back to what you were saying earlier about being there for everyone else. So I want the tone of the conversation to be directed outward to everyone is engaged in conversation, not standing around listening about what I do specifically, because I'll work that in. We have so many different solutions and ways of working with companies. I don't like people to limit that in their own mind, through not through their fault, but it just happens. So when someone tells me more about their business, I like to just kind of take a note and I say, I'd like to talk to you about those few things because those are things that we can do. And I've also got an arsenal of other people that I can introduce you to that'll help you with some of these other things. And then we'll figure out what else we can do for each other. So it's easier to kind of reverse that. Rather than me pitching, it's me listening and then kind of plugging in how we can work together. So that's the tone of where I'm at, like with the Chamber of Commerce, with some of the other organizations that I'm a part of, Baltimore Tourism Association. I'm a proud board member there, and it's about bringing tourist dollars from out of state, out of town into Baltimore. And the better our economy does here in Baltimore, the better our state does, and the more money there is for the businesses and services that we provide. So it's a chain reaction to that. Everybody's 1 degree away from the next person that you need to meet. So getting to know them, getting a little more likable by them, and all of a sudden they're recommending or they're just saying, well, you know what, just have a conversation with Andy and he'll come up with somebody that you need to meet. And I love having that reputation. There's plenty of other people I know that are just the same way. And I thrive on that because the best of us are working together. We're collaborating, not competing. Goes back to that theme.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people who think, "Oh, well, you're in a similar business, you're my direct competition." And when I was deciding on there's 2 major tech franchises. Well, the one I'm actually in is actually not really a major franchise. They're pretty new in the franchise scene. In fact, I'm franchise number 2 for them, which is great. But I was also looking at one that is much larger, does have a presence here in Maryland called CMIT. And I asked the franchisors, like, do you see them as direct competition? And they're like, no. And the reason for that is they seemed more like the card collectors,
Mhm.
that they were more onto the marketing side of things. And I mean, it's worked for their business. The fact that they have so many franchises out there shows that that model has been very successful for them. And I could have gone with them, probably made money, but it wouldn't have given me the flexibility to really feel like I own my business. I'm just a franchise facilitator at that point, like your McDonald's, your Chick-fil-A's. Well, okay, Chick-fil-A may not necessarily be the best example. They do seem a little bit more open. Subway is a great example where they're facilitators. A lot of those chain restaurants are just you own the
Sure, absolutely.
business somewhat, but you are still just like a facilitator.
Right.
And I didn't feel like that was something that I wanted, and I wanted to have that flexibility, which is great that I was able to do this. There are challenges, there are risks, and I think it was definitely well worth it.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that, and judging by your personalities, I know you're in a much better fit. And it's no judge against anyone else. I mean, other people that I've met terrified of networking and getting in front of people, and they're just happy to have a desk job that they can and they'll do very well at that and they'll thrive, and it's not to be judged to say that they're wrong or they're any different. It's just the way that people want to be, and that's great. I encourage that. I encourage that people embrace that. I wrote a post on that recently to say embrace your insecurities. When we share with each other something that taking down a wall, right? Or being a little vulnerable. You hear some of these buzzwords more and more, and I don't know that AI picks up on it, or that and that's there's irony in that, right? For AI to encourage authenticity or vulnerability,
Right.
but hey, somebody else can write a book on that one. But it's true. There's a lot of power in that. That when you're able to say, you know what, I appreciate that compliment or whatever, something that you said, but here's the truth is, I'm an introvert and I really don't like talking to people, or I'm terrified of doing this. And you find out, you know what, me too. I fear the same. And how did you overcome that? And all of a sudden you're talking about how to overcome challenges or how to make progress together. And maybe you hold each other accountable for something. Maybe you look to each other to say, you know what, let's check in on that in a couple weeks. And here's something that worked for me. Let me know how it works for you. And then you don't know what's going to come out of that. You're helping to affect other people in a good way.
Yeah, you said something key that basically clued into the fact that you are an introvert in some way, and that you don't like talking necessarily good on yourself, even though a lot of people will talk good about you. And that does seem to be a trait. That does seem to be a trait of introverted people. I do that all the time. And what I've noticed, particularly in my case, is that not all introverted people are truly introverted. They're just looking for the right outlet. And because I've been an introverted person all my life, but I think,
Mhm.
with how I act and compose myself in these network meetings, you might not necessarily get the full picture of that.
That's right, and I agree, and I'm glad you're sharing that. Thank you. That I feel the same a lot. There are times where it just takes one person in the right environment to empower you or to take down a barrier to say it's okay to be you. It's okay to act the way you want to act. It's within within the confines of decency, right? That we whatever's appropriate. But hey, there's nothing wrong if you want to share this, or you want to do that, or you want to dress comfortably for this event. It's nothing super fancy. I always joke that if I got to wear a shirt with more than 3 buttons, it must be pretty fancy. So we get those every once in a while. But there are
That's
people
fair.
that, and it's great. Depends on your industry, your personality, your character. You may go in a suit no matter where you go. You may wear a dress, you may wear whatever it is that you feel to dress to that level. That's great for you. That's not me. It's going to look forced. I guarantee it. It's it's not going to look comfortable, and I'm not going to be as confident. And I told my kids this. I used to teach little league. I coached my sons in little league for years, and I told them when you're comfortable, you're confident. So you've got to be comfortable with the environment you're walking into. And it's taken some people from me over the years that have empowered me to be you and be you a little bit more or a little stronger. And it doesn't mean you change anything, it means you remove. You don't have to add anything to your own character. You just remove the barrier or the filter or whatever it is that was holding you back, that you were acting a different way. Because when you can show up as yourself and be authentic, then you don't have to worry about who's watching from a distance. I can't claim to be, all about women's and mental health, and I'm making jokes about certain types of people or demographics in a different environment. If somebody overhears that at a restaurant or overhears a locker room talk, as they call it, I'm discredited, and I may never even know about it that somebody else heard it. So that's not going to happen. It's not in my character. So it's something else that I encourage people to understand. Your character is what you can control, but your reputation you can only influence. You do the best that you can, but people are going to think about you whatever they do at the end of the day. You do your best, but you control your character. And my character will not come into question when it comes to those issues that I care about passionately. I'm not going to be found to, to contradict that in any words or behavior. So that's very important. And when someone else can say to you, and I try to be that person for others, I love to be that person. And encourage anyone else to be that person for someone else. That when you walk into a room and you help someone to open up themselves or to thrive in their business, whether you have an interest in it or not, just being that good person, because you don't know who they're going to be down the road or who they might get to, what level they might work up to because of that moment, because of that spirit that you instilled in them to be better than they were yesterday. So I truly believe in that people can make a difference. And, if I'm silly for thinking it, then call me silly. That's fine. But it's working so far.
I would say that not necessarily everybody agrees with that. I definitely see value in that. Seeing a value in some emotional intelligence that there are some business leaders who think is more of a weakness, that
Mhm.
they should just have operational skills and nothing else. Do you think that what do you think is more important, having just that pure emotional intelligence or pure operational skills? What would lean, or is a mix still better?
I think there needs to be a mix. There needs to be respect for both, and there needs to be a clear definition before we judge that. There are plenty of roles in plenty of industries. I mean, I'm in construction industry, so absolutely the operational skills are extremely important. The physical safety is extremely important, but also the psychological, the mental safety is also important. It should be just as big a part of our safety culture. Uh, the emotional intelligence everyone speaks about. And I recently took a leadership class. Shout out to Dr. Nancy Grasmick Leadership Institute. A fantastic program, was Next Level Leaders. And one of the things that I questioned there was, we talk about emotional intelligence, and I look at emotional maturity. And it's a term that's not widely used. I don't know if it's used at all, or if it's something that I'm just thinking in my own head. But it just, think about the difference between intelligence and maturity. Intelligence is knowing a fact, so emotionally being aware of things, and the maturity is knowing how and when to apply it. So we may know that something is right on an emotional side, but when and where we apply it is paramount to the success. The intelligence of knowing that a tomato is a fruit, and the maturity to know not to put it in a fruit salad, right? So it's
Yeah, I use knowledge versus wisdom, but same thing.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, and that's it. So I think about that too, because sometimes where we talk about recent events, the loss of a loved one, of someone that you're close to. Um, we know what we're supposed to do. We know if we were talking to someone else, if we were removed from the situation emotionally, we know here's the process you should go through, and here's everything. And we know that about ourselves, but knowing it is one thing, and knowing when to apply that is, it's let's give it a little time. We're kind of in that time now where I'm having the conversations with some friends that were close, and we're starting to, that healing process. So you can't just kind of jump right to it. It's knowing when to apply. So, but the operational skills, all of that, extremely important, especially in a sales world. If you want to just come back to strictly business development and sales, if the sales does not have a respect for the operations of an organization, there's already a rift between them, and it's going to fail, because we have to understand the ability versus the capability. So we can be capable of doing anything. That's sales. The operations is the ability. Are we able to back that up? And when? Today, tomorrow? Can I do it next week? Is it going to cost a little more? Those are all the factors that both sides have got to respect about each other. So it's always a lot to put in, but it's industry specific in a way, that there's different standards. But having an open mind to that is very important before we judge other people.
I 100% agree with that. Um, and since you do seem to kind of pull yourself in a lot of different directions, so how do you stay grounded with all these connections that you make, both professional, both personal, both that mix of professional and personal? How do you keep yourself grounded so that you don't feel like you are actually being ripped apart?
um, I do my best to approach the things that I enjoy first, and the things that I maybe don't enjoy or that I dread. I find a way to say, "This is why you're going to enjoy it, Andy, because you got to do it." And it's not much to me. It's there's so little that I am tasked with that I absolutely dread. Maybe I get it over with in between things that I like, but it's all working towards higher goals. And I think that's important, that I owe everything to my family first, and friends, close, connections, they come next, and all in that. It's hard for some people, because again, it goes back to knowing individual personalities, where people tell you, well, you can't fill from an empty cup, you have to take care of yourself. Honestly, I thrive on filling others. My pitcher stays full by filling others. And I don't know how rare that is, that people can honestly say that. Every day's a blessing. I've been close enough to death a few times in my life that I know that we're all here for a purpose, and mine is not just to take care of myself. There's plenty of others, in my family first, and if they're proud of me and they're taken care of, then I've got plenty of energy for anything else that comes in. And I know that I'm not tasked with seeing everything all the way through. If someone comes to me and asks me whether it's to rent a piece of equipment, I know how far I can take that, and I can turn it over to someone else on our team that's going to see it the rest of the way through. If they're asking for an introduction, if they're asking for someone to talk to, if they're in an emotional crisis and they just want to start with me, I don't have to see everything all the way through, but making a connection to the right person, the right resource, that is where the win is. I think some people get burned out because they feel like they have to see things 100% through to the end. And when we realize we don't have to do that, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to the people that are coming to you. Then you'll quickly gain that reputation of they're taking on too much and they can't handle it. Um, do I have a lot of emails flagged that I haven't followed up on? Yes, I'm sorry that I do, but I do get to them, and I try to prioritize the best that I can. And I call me on it, and I'm very wide open to, call me out. I can be humble about it and apologize and move on. Hopefully nothing is hurt. Business comes, before just about anything else. But yeah, I consistently, and I thrive on that. Whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it, and part of an Aries personality, if you're into the astrology, I just a little, I like it for entertainment to see when I align with the qualities there. Um, there's whatever reason you want to give it, but I truly do believe that. Uh, you don't have to see everything all the way through, so you can manage a lot more at that level. Hope that explains it.
No, that absolutely does. And as a Scorpio, I can say, actually I don't know what that means, but all I know is it's a water sign. It's very
Look it up on
inappropriate. A lot.
Instagram. You'll get hit with it 10
Oh
times a
yeah,
day.
I'm sure. I'm sure they'll be like, I'll tell you everything about your personality and go like, good luck with that one. um, but yeah, when you're talking about like you're trying to build, for and other people. This isn't the first podcast that I have worked on. This is the first podcast that I've done for myself while still giving voices to other people. And that's one thing that a lot of people were like, "Oh, you should be on these other podcasts more often instead of working behind the scenes." And I'm like, "That's great and all that. I appreciate that you think I should be on podcasts at this face, should be on a podcast, but I still would prefer to build up other people's voices. I would prefer to build up other people's voices because, I mean, there's a lot, middle-aged white guy, like, there's a lot of our voices out there. Do we really need let's build up, but, so one final question I would like to ask before we do wrap all this up is for someone who is listening today who wants to build a stronger reputation, a better network, and a deeper trust in their community, what would you tell them that they need to start doing differently, like this week or even today?
It's great that you put it that way. Yeah, I'm not trying to shout out too many people because you're going to leave so many people out. But I will elevate my friend Wendy Oliver. Wendy comes to a lot of the chamber meetings. She's an author, public speaker. She's fantastic. She talks about joy and clarity. And every time I hear someone that has just that thought of what can I do right now to just close one of the tabs that's open, what can I do to just one small act that'll take the smallest thing off my plate? It's like eating the Brussels sprouts first, and then get to the rest of it. Do something small just to make some type of progress. So I love that, and I would tell anyone just to have a plan to be transparent about your goals. Figure out what your goals are, and once you can put that either in writing or put it out to other people, start talking about your goals and put them out there. Some people will call that, to manifest yourself into the universe. But it's truly the first step, I think, in making any kind of progress. You have to define what is success looking like for you and take that first step. So the first step to me is the definition itself. And when you share that with other people, you'll find that other people will want to help you get there, and they'll want to help you for as long as you will let them. But meaning that for as long as you're likable, for as long as you're working with them, um, and reciprocate when you can. You might not be able to right away. Don't worry about all the negative. If you build your own obstacles by thinking nobody's going to want to talk to me, nobody's going to want to hear about my business, nobody's going to want to help me, then you'll never leave the house. You'll never get online either. You'll never leave the virtual office. Um, you've got to take a step. So I think define your goals, share them with other people, and find the people that are going to help you build, and you're helping them along the way.
I will say that even though I have been to chamber events, a large number of chamber events so far since November, since I started up my business, I still sometimes feel it's a struggle. I think I said last time before the big networking event that I went to last week that it's like if I don't go to this one, it's just pure laziness at that point. The next power lunch is actually literally down the road from me. If I don't make it to that one, and I already am registered and planning to go, I'm actually bringing a guest this time around.
Yeah.
uh, it if it's just down the street. If I don't go, pure laziness at that point, but I will definitely be there. Um, yeah, that Andy, this has been a really great conversation. I'm glad that we were able to have it. I know we danced around it a couple of times before, so I just want to absolutely thank you for your time being here today.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate you, brother.
So I like to do a couple of things before we do wrap this up, and the first thing is where can people find you?
So LinkedIn would be the best way. I mean, Andy Kobus, LinkedIn, look for this here. No AI pictures or anything there. It's all me. And then Instagram, it's and then United Rentals. I mean, it's a huge website. You're not going to find me anywhere on there specifically, but go ahead and reach out anytime. Akobus at ur.com. That's pretty easy. So shoot me a message, but message me on LinkedIn is probably the easiest and best way. I do check that way too often throughout the day.
Same here. Same here. It as much as people like to think it isn't just professional Facebook, but it also kind of is at the same time. But all right, and for the last thing, for business owners, leaders, or young professionals listening to this who, like I said, build stronger. We talked about what they should do today, but is there any last words of wisdom that you would like to leave with them?
I mean, the thread throughout this has been authenticity. I mean, and uh, I spoke recently on a segment that I call authenticity with accountability. So being authentic is one thing. It's important, I think, in getting to your goals because you don't have to change anything about yourself. Your goals will stay consistent when you're authentic, but also the accountability to that is staying consistent to your own self. Again, that people will speak behind your back the same or if not better than they will to your face, then you know that you're doing the right thing. So have that accountability also that you're going to follow up on the things that you say you're going to. Um, don't overcommit yourself because that will damage your reputation and people will quietly walk away. We're in the age of just people ghosting, walking away, and you'll never know why. And by the time you realize they're gone, it's already too late. To try to fix anything. So do your best to to be likable, to be authentic, and to follow up on your word. It's as much as you can ask of anyone else.
I think those are really good words to build by. Absolutely. So again, I do want to thank you so much for coming on, and I would like to thank my audience for tuning in to Stack and Startup. And if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can find us on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts to follow along as we continue to explore business and technology from a different perspective. And lastly, if you want to support these conversations directly, you can become a patron at patreon.com/stack and startup. And until next time, check your emotional intelligence and keep building better. Thank you so much.